slightly mad. I'm going slightly mad.
Hello everybody! Hello Aloysius! Yes we do, we have a very, very special guest today, don't we? Now, yes, I will introduce her, yes, because nobody can hear what you say, you're ultrasonic. Well, yeah, I know, but you just have to leave it to me. I know you'd like to, but you're very excited, aren't you? Yes, yes. Well, everybody, today we have a very special guest. We have Narelle King, who is the author of the latest book, The Bonehead Resistance. And this is now out on Black Cockie Press. So go down to the website, check out the links, buy your copy. So I'm going to pop that there so everyone can see it. Okay, so Aloysius, you're very excited, aren't you? Yes, you are. And you're very excited because you like books with monsters in, don't you? Yes. And this is a book with monsters in, isn't it? Yes. So, we're going to ask our guest here all about her book. Yes, and you just contain your excitement, okay? Be polite. Okay. So, Narelle, tell us about your book, The Bonehead Resistance.
Sure. So my book is set in Australia, but it's the Prime Minister has cancelled the general election, and there's all these rumours swirling around about that maybe he has some monsters involved. And so in my story, my main character Amber goes to a protest with her friend Beck, and there they come across the monsters. And in the story, Amber manages to upset the government and the security forces and ends up on the run with her friend Beck.
Oh, yes, that does sound very, very thrilling. It absolutely. So, what in particular attracts you to writing fantasy?
It's what I love to read. It's my favourite style of book. So I guess that's the main reason I really enjoy reading fantasy, so therefore I wanted to write what I like reading.
Yeah, absolutely. You love reading horror, don't you? Yes. Do you think you'd read this, even though it's fantasy? Yeah, it's got monsters. Yeah, you like monsters. It's got some scary, hairy bits, doesn't it? Yes, yes. I think you would be quite satisfied, Aloysius. So, I personally love the fact that the story is grounded in a very real setting. So, would you like to elaborate on why you chose Sydney and, surrounding areas instead of a fantasy setting?
Yeah, I guess I liked the idea of having a fantasy that was set in Sydney too. And at the time I started writing it, I was living in Epping. So when I started writing it, I started off with just like a made-up suburb of Sydney. And then as I started writing it, I realised that actually everything I was describing was Epping. So I thought, well, I may as well just admit it. And call it Epping. And so it sort of grew from there, that I started just by having the initial scene set where I was living.
Yes, the sculpture of the old escalator in Wynyard Station is something that if anyone has been to Sydney, they would recognise. In fact, I lived in Sydney a long, like 20 years ago, and had a job that was near Wynyard Station, and I'd catch the train to Wynyard Station and actually rode on those old escalators, which were like the steepest escalators in the world. So it's really lovely to have places where it's like, oh, I know that place.
So I actually at one point worked in Wynyard as well. Well, we worked in the city near Wynyard Station, and so I also did that same commute, which was why I sort of set some of it there.
You have very strong female protagonists. Would you like to discuss your choices there?
So I was interested, I guess, in exploring, I read all these fantasy books where the characters, go out and kill, monsters or whatever. I guess I was interested in kind of exploring the morality around that. And so I have these two characters who both actually have very strong morals, but they're very different.
Oh, yes.
So Amber has kind of a traditional Christian style morality where it's all rule bound, you know, thou shalt not kill kind of thing. And Beck has a very...
relativist?
Yeah, it's very, you know... She wants to do what's best for the world, and is willing to do whatever's required to make that happen.
A sort of a more of a needs of the many.
Yeah,
sort
so
of a concept.
She's willing to manipulate people, including Amber, and lie and that kind of thing, for the greater good, I suppose. So that's very much her morality. And so I was interested in having these two characters who both have a very strong moral compass, but they're quite different, and so it creates a lot of conflict.
Yes, and it's when you read it, you're very much like, oh no, you did that, oh shit. Mostly Beck's actions there.
Yeah. And in some ways that's also because the book is viewed from Amber's perspective.
Yes.
So therefore you see Amber's view of what Beck's doing comes through very strongly.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It also struck me that having the female protagonist, having so many female characters in it, because one of the things, I'm not a big fantasy reader, and one of the things that puts me off a lot of fantasy, especially the high fantasy stuff, is it's a little bit sausage fest. You know, I mean, and when so many, like, you know, thinking, especially big popular stuff like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or even more fantasy stuff where the female protagonists don't have a lot of agency, the fact that these characters carry the story, they're not being rescued by men, they're doing the rescuing.
Yeah, and that's something that I really wanted to. I mean, nothing drives me more mad than a fantasy where the female character sits around and waits to be rescued. It drives me mad, and it doesn't. To me, it doesn't relate to my experience of women. I know a lot of women, and none of them would sit around and wait to be rescued.
I think that is one of the things that makes it very Australian, as opposed to just generic fantasy. Yeah. It's not just set here, but yes, like Laura was saying, about Australian women. Indeed, yes, they do certainly fit in with that tradition of those Australian women who are engaged and are going to do their thing, even if there are problems or, you know, fighting monsters. This is not an everyday problem that we're going to have, but we're going to deal. We're going to deal with that. And so, finally, our last question is, where can our viewers here follow you on social media?
So I'm on Instagram, and my Instagram is Narelle King Author. So
okay, and we'll put a link to that down below. So thank you so much, Narelle, for coming and visiting us and talking about your new book. And you have a wonderful shirt that is available on the Black Cockie Press Redbubble shop, so I will put a link to that down below as well. So this would make both of these things, any of these things, would make a wonderful Christmas present, so keep that in mind. And we'll see you again another time with some more talk about writing and books and things, won't we, Aloysius? Yes, I know you've been very good. You've been very good. You'd like to sit with Narelle? Okay, here you go. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.